Classic Historical Tales presents Project Yair, The Secret Pact. Behind the Vela Flash Part 1, Shadows over the Cape, 1976 to 1978. The sun glinted off the tarmac at Waterkloof Air Force Base as the unmarked Boeing 707 taxied to a halt. 3 men disembarked in silence, all in civilian clothes. One wore thick black glasses, another carried a Samsonite briefcase with a radiation warning label tucked discreetly inside. They were scientists, Israelis, though their passports said otherwise. The lead scientist, Dr. Haim Erez, a physicist from Dimona, stepped into the waiting Mercedes without speaking. South Africa needed a nuclear deterrent. Israel needed a place to test what it could not test in the Negev. Their interests aligned in shadow. 2 weeks earlier, Mossad had finalized an agreement with South Africa's Bureau for State Security, BOSS. The pact was simple and grim. South Africa would provide logistical support and a remote test site in exchange for 4 operational nuclear devices. Israel would get secrecy and distance. The Israeli side named the arrangement Project Yair after Avraham Stern. The South Africans called it Operation Tulip. South African officials, desperate to fortify their apartheid regime against growing internal resistance and international condemnation, believed the nuclear weapons would give them a Samson option of their own. A doomsday contingency in case the ANC or foreign interventionists ever brought the regime to its knees. The site chosen for the test was near the Prince Edward Islands, a remote and windswept territory in the South Indian Ocean. It lay outside commercial flight paths, beyond the range of Soviet and American radar, but not invisible to the aging American Vela satellites that circled above. Over the next 18 months, Israeli scientists set up mobile diagnostic stations aboard naval vessels, while South African military engineers constructed secure bunkers and refitted vessels for classified missions. Officially, these were joint marine research projects. In reality, they were rehearsals for Armageddon. At a dinner in Pretoria in October 1978, Prime Minister P.W. Botha raised a glass with Israeli Defense Minister Ezer Weizmann. No reporters were present. The agreement, unspoken in the toast, had already reshaped the balance of power in the Southern Hemisphere. Part 2, The Bargain of Shadows. Inside the war room of Groote Schuur, high above the city of Cape Town, the smell of old wood and pipe smoke mixed with tension. Defense Minister Magnus Mallen stood before a map of South Africa dotted with pins. He tapped Johannesburg. This city is our greatest liability. Too many blacks, too many radicals, too many international eyes. It's also our economic heart, said Pick Botha. You can't just propose to remove it. Mallen turned. I'm proposing we prepare for the worst. Not next year, not even 1983, but if the tide continues, we create our final option. Strategic relocation to Cape Town. Fortify the government apparatus here. Let Johannesburg become their symbolic capital, then remove it. The others went silent. The plan had circulated in whispers. But this was the first time it had been spoken aloud in the presence of 3 cabinet ministers. You're talking about nuking our own people, Pick said. No, said Mallen. We're talking about preserving our nation. The ANC wants civil war. Let them win a crater. State Security Chief Jacobus du Toit entered the room. He carried a thick file. The Israelis will provide 4 devices, du Toit said flatly. 1 will be tested, 3 are to be delivered, all tactical. 2 kiloton payloads. Enough to level a city, but not leave fallout beyond the blast radius. Pick stared at him. And what about the world? Du Toit shrugged. Israel will deny, we will deny. And the Americans? They'll grumble, but they won't act. Not unless we force their hand. They agreed to form a contingency cell. Codenamed Project Protea, it would begin drawing up plans for mass relocation, government duplication in the Cape, and emergency drills masked as civil defense. The plan to nuke Johannesburg was not official policy, but it lived now in folders and bunkers, and in a safe in a ministry building in Pretoria, A map was marked with a red circle labeled Final Option. Part 3, The Flash That Wasn't Seen, 22nd September 1979. The SAS Walvisby rocked gently in the frigid sea. Below deck, Dr. Erez adjusted his headset. The diagnostic rig hummed. Commander Arno Verster, South African Navy, stood beside him, nervously sipping instant coffee. They were 45 kilometers east of Marion Island. All equipment was calibrated. Final checks had been run. The wind howled outside. Seabirds circled overhead. Final sequence initiated, the Israeli technician said. At 53 GMT, the sky erupted. A blinding white flash lit the clouds, followed by a second, longer pulse. It lasted less than a second, but it was unmistakable to trained eyes. It was the nuclear double flash, the fingerprint of atomic fire. Erez watched the telemetry roll in. Pressure curves, radiation blooms, all within tolerance. On the bridge, Verster exhaled. "We did it," he said. Erez only nodded. "Send the signal. Operation successful. Begin dismantling." Far above, the American satellite Vela 6911 recorded the flash pattern. At NORAD, an alert pinged at 104. Within hours, the NSA, CIA, and Department of Energy were examining the data. Back in South Africa, Erez and his team quietly disappeared. Their ship made port in Simon's Town with no fanfare. The logs listed a meteorological anomaly, but the flash had been seen. Part 4. Langley's Mole. Paul Danton was used to informants, but this one unnerved him. The man calling himself Pieter was clearly former South African intelligence. Educated, fluent in English, terrified. "I need to tell someone before it happens," Pieter said on the cassette. The envelope had arrived at the CIA's burn station a week after the Vela flash. Inside were diagrams of the test rig, a classified SDF memo discussing strategic cleansing strikes, and the transcript of a meeting discussing evacuation of Johannesburg government personnel by 1983. Peter's voice continued. "They tested it. They have 3 more. Israel gave them the bombs. The plan is to let Johannesburg fall, then erase it." Danton went cold. He forwarded everything to Langley. Within days, he was on a plane to Washington. President Carter was briefed on October 3rd. The implications were catastrophic. A secret Israeli-South African nuclear axis, a rogue regime planning internal annihilation, a successful test. The National Security Council debated. Some wanted public condemnation, others urged caution. Eventually, Carter agreed on a back-channel ultimatum. Part 5, The American Ultimatum. On October 10th, a diplomatic pouch arrived at the U.S. Embassy in Pretoria. It contained a letter to be delivered privately to P.W. Botha. Its language was firm. If the Republic of South Africa continues its pursuit of nuclear weaponization or deployment, the United States will take actions extending beyond sanctions. This includes the provision of financial and material support to forces seeking political change within your borders. It was a message written with surgical precision, a threat wrapped in policy. Botha read it twice, then burned it. The cabinet was summoned. Pick Botha argued for immediate retreat. "We go ahead. We lose everything. If the Americans arm the ANC, we're done." Malin was furious. "We've come this far. You want to throw it away?" Du Toit was silent, then he spoke. "We stand down. The Israelis are gone. We bury Protea. We say nothing, and we keep what we have." Project Yair was terminated. Project Protea was disbanded. The remaining devices, if they had arrived, were stored in unmarked containers and forgotten. Part 6, A City Not Destroyed, 1984. By 1984, Johannesburg had become a powder keg. Riots in Soweto, strikes in Alexandra, bombings by Umkhonto we Sizwe. But the bomb never came. Government records show increased troop movements in and out of Cape Town. The relocation plan had begun but stopped. Some say the weapons were moved inland. Others claim one was buried beneath Simon's Town Naval Base. A third may have been quietly returned to Israel. And the fourth, lost, perhaps deliberately. Mandela would later say in private that he believed the regime had considered annihilation, but chose survival instead. Part 7, the bombs that might have been. In the years following the end of apartheid, South Africa declared its nuclear program dismantled. 6 devices, all destroyed. The IAEA confirmed. But the 7th, the 8th, the ones that never belonged to South Africa? Classified interviews with ANC officials suggest there were rumors of an Israeli crate unearthed during renovations near Saldanha Bay. Others speak of American operatives quietly visiting decommissioned bunkers in 1996. Israel, as always, said nothing. The Vela flash remains unexplained, officially, but history, as it turns out, may have hinged on a double flash in the sky and a choice not to turn a city to ash. Thank you for listening. Stay tuned for more classic historical tales. Click subscribe to never miss the next exciting episode.